They found her under the mango tree, a mound of dirt by her feet, and her hands smeared with blood. She was burying something, or someone. And when they saw what lay in the shallow grave, no one in the village of Ikot-Ubong would ever forget that night. Madam Stella wasn't always the subject of fear. When she first arrived in Ikot-Ubong years ago, people admired her. She came from the city, a tall, beautiful woman with a commanding presence and expensive clothes. She claimed to be a herbalist, bringing remedies for sicknesses no one else could cure. Her concoctions worked miracles. Children recovered from fevers, barren women conceived, and the elderly found strength in their bones again. But Stella's success was strange, too quick, too unnatural. While other herbalists struggled with failed mixtures and seasonal herbs, her business flourished and her wealth grew. She never seemed to age either. Her skin remained smooth, her energy vibrant. The villagers began to wonder what secrets lay behind her success. Some said she had been touched by the gods. Others believed she had made a pact with spirits. But no one dared ask her directly. Stella had a way of making people feel small when they looked into her piercing eyes, and she rarely invited anyone into her home. Her house itself was a mystery. It stood at the edge of the village, where the bush began to thicken, and no one liked to pass there after dark. The land around it seemed lifeless. No flowers bloomed, no birds sang, and even the breeze seemed heavier near her gate. At night, strange lights flickered in her windows, and sometimes faint drumming could be heard in the distance. Still, the villagers didn't question her too much. After all, her remedies worked, and that was enough for most people. But then, children began to disappear. It started with small things, missing goats, chickens, and dogs. People shrugged it off as the work of wild animals. But when a child named Mfon went missing, everything changed. He was only 8 years old, playful and curious. The last time anyone saw him, he was running toward the path behind Stella's house. The search for Mfon lasted 3 days, but it felt like an eternity. Aunty Eka, Mfon's mother, was inconsolable, roaming the village barefoot, calling his name through her tears. The men organized search parties, combing through the forest and nearby streams, but there was no trace of him. On the 3rd day, Aunty Eka went to Stella's house. Desperation had stripped her of fear. She banged on the door, screaming for Stella to open it. When Stella finally did, she looked annoyed. "Stella, you think I keep your child here? Go and look for him where you lost him." That was the end of the conversation. Stella shut the door in Aunty Eka's face, and the woman collapsed on the ground, wailing. From that day, people began to suspect Stella, but no one had the courage to confront her. The village grew restless. Strange things began happening. Families woke up to find their doorsteps smeared with blood. Dogs barked endlessly at nothing. And every night, the same drumming and chanting could be heard coming from Stella's compound. The village elders gathered to discuss what should be done, but fear held them back. Stella was powerful, and no one wanted to be the one to provoke her. Then came the night Okon, the village drunk, saw her. Okon wasn't known for bravery. In fact, most people avoided him because he was always drunk on palm wine. But that night, he was returning home late from the market square when he decided to take the shortcut behind Stella's house. As he stumbled along the path, he heard it, the sound of muffled cries. At first, he thought he was imagining it. He stopped, holding his breath, and listened. The cries grew louder, and his drunken state gave him just enough courage to follow the sound. What he saw froze the blood in his veins. There, under the mango tree in Stella's yard, she was digging a hole. A boy lay bound and gagged beside her, struggling weakly. It was Mfon. Okon ran. He ran faster than he ever had in his life, screaming for help. The villagers didn't ask questions when he burst into the square, shouting about what he'd seen. They grabbed lanterns, sticks and machetes and stormed Stella's compound. When they arrived, they found her exactly as Okon described, standing over the hole, holding a blood-stained knife. She didn't try to run. Instead, she looked up at them with that wide, eerie smile. "Stella, what do you think you're doing? You don't know the forces you're playing with." The men didn't care. They pulled Mfon from the hole and discovered what Stella had been hiding. Beneath him were bones, human bones, too many to count. Some were small, like those of children. The crowd erupted in anger, tying Stella up and dragging her to the village square. But she didn't struggle. She laughed, a deep, unsettling sound that sent shivers through everyone present. "Stella, you think I'm your enemy. But I have done more for this village than your gods ever will. Those bones gave you bountiful harvests. They protected you from sickness. And now you repay me with this?" No one listened. They locked her in the chief's hut while they decided her fate. Some wanted her burned alive. Others argued that she should be handed over to the police in the city. But before they could agree, Stella vanished. By morning, the ropes that had tied her lay empty, and no one saw how she escaped. The villagers panicked, convinced that her spirit would haunt them. They burned her house and the cursed mango tree, but it did nothing to lift the dark cloud that settled over Ikot-Ubong. Crops failed. Children fell ill. And at night, the villagers heard strange cries echoing through the forest. Some swore they saw Stella in the shadows, watching with her piercing eyes and that unsettling smile. No one speaks her name anymore. But when the wind blows through the village at night, it carries whispers of the woman who once claimed to protect them, leaving them to wonder if her curse will ever fade. And as for the mango tree, its roots remain, twisted and blackened, a reminder of the horror that unfolded there. They say if you stand there long enough, you can still hear the sound of digging and faint, muffled cries.